Many of us are familiar with Buddha, the Enlightened One, and the teachings that eventually developed into one of the major religions of today, Buddhism. However, some might not know that Buddha was once an ordinary person, just like you and me. So, what did Siddhartha do to become Buddha? What life events and teachings led to his enlightenment? In this video, we will explore Buddha's life and delve into his teachings, which can offer guidance and inspiration for our daily lives and spiritual practices. Siddhartha Gautama, often called the Buddha, was a wandering ascetic and spiritual teacher who lived in South Asia around the 6th or 5th century BCE. Born to the rulers of the Shakya clan in what is now Nepal, hence his appellation Shakyamuni, which means sage of the Shakya clan. According to Buddhist texts, a prophecy was given at Siddhartha's birth that he would become either a powerful king or a great spiritual leader. His father, fearing that he would choose the latter if he were exposed to the sufferings of the world, kept him away from the hardships of poverty, disease, and old age. As a result, Siddhartha grew up in a luxurious palace surrounded by every comfort. However, at the age of 29, he slipped past his father's defenses and saw for the first time what Buddhists refer to as the 4 signs: an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and a religious ascetic. While reflecting on his life, Siddhartha came to the realization that every person and thing he loved, every object, fancy clothing, jewels, and even his horse, would inevitably be lost to him one day. He understood that he, like everyone else, was susceptible to the inevitability of aging, illness, and death. The thought of losing everything he held dear caused him immense sorrow. However, he observed that the religious ascetic, who was also subject to the same fate, appeared to be at peace. When Siddhartha inquired about the ascetic's contentment, the latter revealed that he was pursuing the path of spiritual reflection and detachment. The ascetic acknowledged the world and its possessions as an illusion, and therefore was unconcerned with loss, having already given everything away. Holy man's asceticism inspired Siddhartha to follow a similar path in search of freedom from the suffering caused by the infinite cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. One night, after gazing at all the precious possessions he held dear and his sleeping wife and son, he decided to leave. Aware that his father would attempt to stop him, Siddhartha secretly departed the palace under the veil of night. Sending all his belongings and jewelry back with his servant and horse, he dressed in simple robes and ventured into the woods. Completely abandoning his luxurious existence, he spent 6 years as an ascetic, seeking out various teachers, attempting to conquer the innate appetites for food, sex, and comfort. He subjected himself to the harshest yogic disciplines, including rigorous fasting by eating a single grain of rice a day. Eventually, near death of starvation from his vigilant fasting, he accepted a bowl of rice from a young girl. Once he had eaten, he had a realization that physical austerities were useless as the means to achieve spiritual liberation. He ended his asceticism and went to the nearby village of Bodh Gaya, where he sat on a bed of grass beneath a Bodhi tree, and vowed to remain there until he either understood the meaning of life or die in the process. While in deep meditation, Siddhartha reflected on life and suffering. He came to a profound realization that the root of suffering lies in attachment, the reliance on stability in a world of constant change. In a moment of clarity, he understood that everything, identity, possessions, desires, are not permanent, and ignorance of the fact that everything in life constantly changes leads to suffering. Recognizing this truth, he realized that attachment to anything, assuming it would last, was a serious mistake. Such attachment, he realized, only traps individuals in an endless cycle of craving, desires, rebirth, and death. With this realization, Siddhartha transcended to become the Buddha, or the awakened one, achieving enlightenment. After his liberation, Buddha did not choose to live in solitude. Instead, he decided to share his knowledge with others and help them find their way to liberation from ignorance and desires, ultimately ending their suffering. He taught his students the principles of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. The Four Noble Truths are simple and state that life is suffering. The cause of suffering is desire. The end of suffering comes with an end to desire. There is a path which leads one away from desire and suffering, which is the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path serves as a guide to living one's life without attachments that guarantee suffering, consisting of right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These principles are the fundamentals of Buddhism and are aimed at helping one break free from the cycle of reincarnation. According to Buddha, one can still enjoy life while following these principles, as long as he understands that nothing in life is permanent and no things are meant to last. The impermanence of life is like a flowing river, where each moment is a unique droplet of water. Just as a river is never the same from one moment to the next, life unfolds in a continuous stream of change. Buddhists use the analogy of a dinner party to help understand the concept of impermanence. Just like a dinner party, everything in life has a beginning, a duration, and an end. Once the dinner party is over, it's natural to show gratitude to the host and leave, without becoming overly attached or upset. Similarly, when something in life, including life itself, comes to an end, it's important to acknowledge its impermanence and move on without mourning or holding on to something that is never meant to last forever. Buddha called his teaching the Dharma, which refers to the cosmic law that governs the consequences of our thoughts, influences our reality, and shapes our actions. As the Buddhist text Dhammapada puts it, our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. Suffering follows an evil thought, as the wheels of a cart follow the oxen that draws it. According to Buddha's teachings, it is not a higher power or God that is responsible for the level of suffering we experience in our lives. Instead, we humans are solely responsible for it. This is because we make a choice to become attached to things and people, and we also choose to have certain thought patterns that can further lead to negative emotions and suffering. Instead, the choice should be to work diligently to end the never-ending cycle of suffering through spiritual practices and self-reflection. Over the next 45 years, Buddha traveled extensively around India, sharing his teachings with people from all walks of life, including women and untouchables, who were considered the lowest caste at the time. In his community, everyone was equal regardless of their background or status. The rich and the poor, men and women, kings and slaves, young and old, all were welcomed with open arms. His father, the king himself, became a disciple, as well as many from the royal family, including Buddha's son Rahula. Before he died, Buddha gathered his disciples for a final conversation. He urged them not to seek another deity, leader, or guru, but to take the teachings of Dharma as their true guide. His final words were, "All things in life end. Work diligently for your own enlightenment."